right, all together after 3.
Why don't you join Mike and Alan on the breakfast show? Find it here on Spectrum on Air, the colourful voice of radio. They are professional, don't you know? Looking after you here on the breakfast show. Don't go anywhere else, there's nothing better, you know. So join Mike and Alan on the quirky breakfast show, here on Spectrum on Air, the colourful voice of radio.
Right, there we are. We are all set up. Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Breakfast Show here on Spectrum on Air, the colourful voice of radio. And, of course, I'm joined, as usual, by Alan, who's not going to say a lot, really, today, because he's going to be busy putting up pictures and all the rest of it, because we have a very special guest on this morning, and somebody who I'm very pleased to welcome, who's going to have we're going to have a nice long chat about something, and that's Roger Parnell, who is an ex-detective from the police force up there in Yorkshire. Roger, good morning.
Morning.
Now then, you wanted to be a policeman, didn't you, all of your life?
I certainly did. I was born in South Yorkshire in a town called Doncaster.
Yeah.
My dad worked down there, was a coal miner. And all my friends, a lot of the kids who were, in the village, worked down the pit. But I was fortunate. I passed what we used to have in the 11 plus exam to go to grammar school. And that's, and my dad said, right, you're not going down. But I always wanted to join the police force. And at the age of 16, I joined as a police cadet, and that was in 1956. And I was a cadet for 3 years, but I joined as a PC on the 2nd of June, 1959. Can I just mention that particular date? Because I was born on the 2nd of June, 1940. I joined the police on the 2nd of June, 1959, and I got married on the 2nd of June, 1962. So I'm always pleased when it gets to the 3rd of June because everything happens to me on the 2nd.
I'll tell you what, it must be a relief, because you can't be accused of forgetting anything, can you?
Exactly. But also one other peculiar thing is that Peter William Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, was born on the 2nd of June, 1946.
Good Lord. I mean,
And of course, the Queen, our late Queen, the coronation was on the 2nd of June, 1953. So I seem to be surrounded by the 2nd of June.
God, dear, oh dear. I mean, it's mind-boggling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, you wanted to become, and you did become, a police cadet, which must have given you a real insight into how the police works.
I was very fortunate because when I first joined, I went to a place called Tadcaster, which is in Yorkshire, and you used to do you did the morning in the general office, seeing to members of the public coming to the desk and everything. But in the afternoon, you went into the CID, and I was fortunate to work. There was a detective there called Tim Murphy. They're all, a lot of my old ones, they're all dead now. But he sort of took me under his wing, if you like, and he showed me how to take prisoners' photographs. Seeing where they have the front view and the side view, and how to deal with the aliens inquiries and firearms inquiries. And he used to take me out with him on inquiries. And so I got the bug. And then when I joined as a PC, I joined what was then the West Riding Police. I don't know if you know this, perhaps some people don't, but there were a lot of police forces. A lot of cities and towns had their own police forces, but they amalgamated in 1968 and again in 1974.
Yeah.
But when I joined in 59, I actually went down to London. I worked in Scotland Yard for a couple of years. Well, I worked in the West End, covered Soho and Piccadilly that way. I only worked in Scotland Yard and I sprained my ankle. So I went for 2 weeks working in the Criminal Record Office at Scotland Yard. But I was married in 62. Couldn't settle living down south. and my wife, we're both from Yorkshire, so we decided to come back home to Yorkshire, and that's where I came to a town called Huddersfield, and which is where I am now.
Huddersfield, yeah, lovely. Yes.
Just on the edge of the Pennines.
That's right. Yes, yeah, I know. I've been there several times. Now, did you always want to go into the detective side of the police force
Yes.
rather than, dog handling or cars?
No.
Like that?
I did work with others, but I always wanted to be a detective.
Yeah.
You do learn a lot, obviously, from. You think you know a lot, but when you join, you don't, and you relied a lot on the old detectives. You describe me as an ex-detective. I prefer to say I'm a retired detective.
Right. Okay.
Some left.
Slap wrist already. Yeah, I don't mind.
Some left, but I was a detective for 27 years, and when I retired in '92, I was actually the longest-serving detective in West Yorkshire. I don't know if it's still a record, but. That was it. I was a detective for 27 years.
And did you stay? What rank did you have?
I did not want. I did not get a rank because I hadn't. To be honest, I didn't have time to take my exam. Well, I took my exam, but I was always too busy because I did actually arrest 4 murderers in my time. 4, yeah. The first one, I didn't know he was a murderer. I was a uniformed police when I just arrived in Huddersfield. And in the busy centre, there's what they call marketplace. You know the old TARDIS police boxes?
Yes, yeah.
And we had that one. It's sited in marketplace in the centre. And I was in there one evening with an old pal of mine who later became a dog handler. And there were 2 fellas outside this side fighting. And one was much bigger than the other one. And it was really knocking him about. So we had to go out, and it was badly beaten, the smaller man. So we arrested him and dragged him onto the police station fighting. He didn't want to be arrested. But a couple of hours later, the inspector came out to me and he said, "Oh, Parnell, do you know that chap you arrested?" He said, "Well, he's wanted for murder over in Lancashire," which I didn't know. And then the second one was it was a young chap who was in town. He was seen to his girlfriend on the last bus, and he was running to catch his own bus. And there were some yobs with knives. They're still using them nowadays, aren't they? Yeah. And he was running past. One of them just got his knife and stabbed him in his stomach as he was running past, and he bled to death in the shop doorway. And I arrested him. But the other 2 later on were when I'd been established as a detective. These were well after the Ripper, into the 80s.
Yeah, I mean,
I was 17 years in CID in Huddersfield, but we became Kirklees Division, and for the last 10 years, from 1982 to 1992, I went to Dewsbury, and that, of course, is where famous Dewsbury, where William Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, was taken and kept in the cells there.
That's right. It's a fascinating story, and we're going to come to that in a minute or two. But I think that one of the things that happen, I mean, with murders, is it not true to say that the victim knows the murderer in a lot of the cases?
Difficult to
or
say.
Not.
I would say that you get domestic murders.
Yeah.
My wife murders her husband, or a husband with the wife. But a lot of the victims, I found that they didn't know who the victim were. They didn't know them. I mean, like we talk about Yorkshire, he didn't know any of his victims, and they didn't know him.
That's right. Yeah.
But sorry,
go on.
No, I'm just saying that I've been involved in a lot of murder inquiry, because when you get a murder, you just draft officers in from different divisions, if need be, and you would assist. For instance, if you're in Huddersfield and there's a murder in Leeds, if required, you go over to assist. But it's mainly done by local knowledge. You need local knowledge, which I remember one quite amusing, actually. I remember one, again, I mentioned the Yorkshire Ripper, and it was suggested that they bring up the Metropolitan Police to assist. And somebody said, hang on, it's they never caught their Yorkshire Ripper from 100 years ago.
Yes.
Even though it's quite serious, you do have your amusing moments. And you need to have a sense of humour with being in the police. People get the wrong impression of police. And we're just ordinary people doing their job, aren't we? We have to be, I always remember being a little bit crude. When I first went into CID, my sergeant said to me, now listen, lad, when you join the police, you're dealing with members of the public, and 90% of them are decent, respectable people.
Yeah.
And I'll just use his words, I hope it's okay. And it's, let me say, when you're dealing with criminals, a lot of these people are ruthless, vicious bastards, to use his word.
Yeah.
And so you can be more ruthless, more vicious, and a bigger bastard. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Yeah. And I just found that, not every time, but in many cases, that's what you had to do.
When you say, I mean, obviously, when a murder happens somewhere, and you say that people are drafted into the section to handle it, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Because I mean, to some people might sort of think, oh, that's great, I'm going to be attached to a murder inquiry for the next 3-4 months or whatever. Yeah. That's a bit of a swan. Or not?
Difficult. I mean, see, I've been here in Huddersfield since 1963. I know the town backwards. I go back to my hometown of Doncaster occasionally. It's changed so much over the years. And when you're drafted into like Leeds or Bradford, which were main places where the murders were taking place with Sutcliffe, you're not all that familiar with it. There's can you go to Albion Street? Well, where the heck is it?
Yes,
don't know. And you need a street map with you. Or they try and put you, if you go over, you'd usually worked in pairs, and they try to put you with a local police officer who does know the way.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, training, I've always thought, rightly or wrongly, though, that detectives work with training, but on a lot of instinct, a lot of, they get gut feelings and that, yeah?
That is, you're absolutely spot on there. Initially, when you go into CID, you have a 13-week initial detective training course. And there was then, in Wakefield, which is the headquarters of the West Yorkshire Police, there was a police academy there, and you used to do your 13 weeks training as a detective. It's good grounding, but there's no substitute for experience and practical on-the-ground dealing and listening to older detectives, older cops, not just detectives, but older PCs, and the amount of history and information that you get from that they pick up. There's no substitute for experience. And I've just found over the years, don't get me wrong, but they sort of started an accelerated promotion scheme.
Yeah,
where they were promoting young officers because they'd passed exams, and they were sergeants after 3-4 years, inspectors after 5 or 6, and they were raising the ranks.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the practical experience. Some were good, but there were a lot who needed the practical experience to make decisions. They made the decisions, we carried them out, usually. I remember on one occasion, the superintendent came and he said, right, lads, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Any comments? And one lad said, a DC said, well, we shall just carry on as normal.
Yes.
Which we did.
Yeah, yeah.
The same detective, I always remember we sat in the same office and he answered the telephone. And I spoke very broad Yorkshire, and this person on the other end, it was the detective saying to him, yeah, I've been looking for you. Where have you been? And he said, well, I'm telling you, you're under arrest now. Make yourself down to the police station. And he did. He came in. So this detective arrested a man on the telephone. These are little bits, little things, that happen. And people are unaware of these.
I think it's fascinating talking to you because the fact that you've alluded earlier on, that the police people don't like the police because the job they do and all this sort of thing. But
Yeah,
and one could almost say they're not human beings, but they are, aren't they? I mean,
of course. So.
I
Yeah.
think it's something that we tend sadly to forget, don't we?
Yeah, you see, people say, because I'll tell the policeman about you. So
Yeah,
straight away, but sometimes if they want any help, who do they ring?
yeah,
They ask for help from the police,
yeah, yeah,
and it's, I'm just known. I used to go out, if I was weekend off, I'd go out a local, I'd go and have a pint somewhere.
yeah.
And you're in the, we lived in it, unlike you see the armed forces, they lived in barracks or this sort of thing. We lived within the community. Here in Huddersfield, you had the main headquarters in town centre, but you had little police stations blotted about round the in the outer areas, and people could pop in and see the local policeman, And if it wasn't manned all the time, they would have a little phone outside, which you could have free
That's right.
phone.
I remember it well. Yeah.
Yeah, but they've all been. You see, that seems to have gone. A lot of these have been demolished now.
Yeah. Do you think that technology has helped or harmed the police force?
In many ways, it has. In some ways, it hasn't. I mean, when we were on the go, we didn't have DNA, for instance.
No.
That helped a heck of a lot. As far as we didn't have radios. Fingerprints was in. That was good. But if you wanted to contact anyone, you had to try and find a telephone box somewhere because we didn't have, like you see now, we've got little radios.
Yeah.
We didn't have that communication. That came in later.
Yeah. It's also the other side of it. Let's get around to your main job really as a detective, and that was dealing with murder cases. I mean, it must have been. Did you switch on and switch off with the job?
No,
you must do.
No, impossible. I'm still got it in my head now because my wife will just say, you're talking about the Ripper, or every month, the first Wednesday every month. I meet up with old colleagues for lunch, first Wednesday, and of all ranks, and you sort of, when you get there, you put the world to rights, don't you? But we all reminisce, and you still. So every month, this is the ones in Huddersfield, but the last 10 years I worked in Dewsbury, and I meet up with the old Dewsbury colleagues, but they are mainly. CID.
Yeah.
That one is actually called A Gathering of Ancient Detectives. But the thing is, like the one in Huddersfield where we used to meet up for lunch, there used to be 20, 30 of us meet up. At the last meeting, there were 8 of us. We're dwindling, I'm afraid.
Well, that's the sad thing in life, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, I did many years in the forces, and lots of my friends are all turning their toes up, It's
exactly, yeah.
It's the fact of life, isn't it? So
it is.
But when you were actually dealing with a case, and I mean, let's come around to the Yorkshire Ripper because I mean that was an horrendous case, wasn't it?
It really was.
Series. I mean. What was the start of it? I mean, what was your first sort of reactions when you were called in and told, right, okay, we've got a murder?
Well, I'm actually yesterday I was preparing everything. I got a list of things, and it started off as reign of terror, if you like, in Leeds, and he actually attacked her. He had attacked a woman in Keighley, I think it was. But his first murder was actually in October 1975, Wilma McCann. We did not know at that time, or it wasn't known that we had a serial killer on the loose. There'd been 2 or 3 assaults before that, before Wilma McCann murder, and it was being dealt with by Leeds police, Leeds CID, all both uniform and CID. But then in January 1976, we had another one, another murder, and I think it became to realise that we'd got somebody on the loose who was killing prostitutes. And on that one, that was a woman called Emily Jackson, and that was in January 1976. And we were then drafted in from other divisions to assist in the inquiry. But I'm afraid after that, they started coming thick and fast. You'd go on one, you'd start an inquiry onto one murder, then you get another one, a body's been found. So you had to break off, even though you were still doing, but it became a pattern. It was realised that whoever was doing one was doing them all, because his MO, his modus operandi, if you like, was exactly the same. Ball peen hammer at the back of the head, and we could, forensically, it was examined. The ball peen hammer with the round bit. And he could see where he could hit them at the back of the head. And there was an indentation. And he would stab them with either a knife or a sharpened screwdriver. Oh. I can remember Dick Holland, who I worked with Dick Holland. Dick Holland, I worked with him when I first went into CID. He was Detective Sergeant. He finished up Detective Superintendent #2 in charge of running the Ripper. And I can remember him coming over he came to Huddersfield to where the abattoir. And they were practicing, he was trying to find, and he was stabbing dead pigs, because of the consistency of a pig's skin. It's a little bit thicker than a female, male, people, a human's skin. And he was trying to find out what instrument he was using to kill them. They tried all sorts of things, but it really was very time consuming. And it finished up where you started work, and we'd come to work at 9 a.m. and you were finishing at midnight.
Yeah.
And you got one day off a month.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely shattered, to be quite honest. But you continued on.
Yeah, total dedication, isn't it?
It really was. When you get, it's not a job, it's a vocation when you join.
Yeah.
You really are. I suppose it's like when you're in the armed forces. It's a way of life, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yeah.
And I used to go home, and I miss sometimes. You miss your kids growing up to some extent.
Yeah.
And in fact, over the years, it did actually cause, because of the hours that we worked, there were marriage breakups. And
well, there would have been, because I mean, again, I suppose you're sort of covered by sort of confidentiality, isn't it? I mean,
yes,
you can't sort of go home and discuss it with your wife, or if you've got your kids are older and that sort of.
Exactly. I mean, I used to go home and say to my wife and my daughter, whatever you do, don't go out on your own. Don't even pop to the shop. It's so, just don't do it, because the killings were so random. It could be anywhere, and they weren't just prostitutes. But one thing which did annoy a lot of us on the inquiry was when there was a young girl murdered called Jane MacDonald. She was just a 16-year-old girl, and it was the press putting, this one is not a prostitute. Yeah. It's a decent girl. And so it made the way that the police were conducting the investigation different. Prior to that, they'd been dealing with prostitute murders. Well, it didn't matter to us who they were. They were as far. Prostitutes were they were human beings. A lot of them were forced into. What? Sorry.
They're still a victim.
Exactly. I mean, some of them were mothers with kids. Well, Mother Canmus, for instance, she had a son and a daughter, and they I know, they were waiting for her to come home. She'd left them in because she needed money, and she's gone on the game, as they call it. And I'm actually, in that film that we made, which is on YouTube, you actually go to the exact place where her body was found.
Yeah.
Have you viewed the? I was asked a few years ago if I would make a film about this, and I kept saying no. we've had enough of the Yorkshire Ripper, and my wife's sort of fed up with it. Always talking to people come up to me and say, "Oh, you were on the Ripper. What happened?" And they ask you questions.
Yeah.
And I've seen programs on television, and they're simply not true.
Yeah.
They make things up, and it just sort.
Why do you think that happened? Why did they do that?
I don't know. Well, to make
sensationalism.
It makes interesting viewing, doesn't it? I mean, I've never seen. The one in particular was, I think it was on Channel 4, I'm not quite sure. But they said that he was arrested in Sheffield and that's where he confessed to the killings. Totally untrue. That is not true. He was arrested in Sheffield, a good arrest actually, by two policemen, Bob Hydes and Bob Ring. And they were on patrol in a police car. But by the way, that was in a different, they were in South Yorkshire Police. They didn't have any murders. All the murders that we had were either in West Yorkshire or a couple in Lancashire. But they were on patrol, driving a police car, and they saw this particular car parked in an unusual place. And they noticed the number of it and thought, strange. It's actually in the grounds of a place called Light Trades House in Sheffield. And there's a gateway, and they were just parked around the corner of it. And they thought, strange, they're parked there. And they actually noticed the number. And the only computer thing, we had what they call the PNC, the Police National Computer.
Yeah.
And they checked it, they called in on the police radio and just checked it up. And they said, that number, the number of that car, it would appear it's probably it's been reported at Dewsbury. That it's those that number on that car, the number plates were stolen from a scrapyard. It's called, I used to go in Cooper Bridge Spares. It's a big vehicle dismantler and scrapyard between Huddersfield and Dewsbury. The two owners were Barney and Baggy, Gordon Bagshaw. Well, I knew them very well, you see. And they had reported that somebody had pinched a number plate off a Skoda car. And it was reported to Dewsbury because Cooper Bridge came under Dewsbury Division. So as he has been arrested, when they checked this number out, and it's been reported stolen in Dewsbury, Sheffield Police don't deal with it. They ring Dewsbury up and say, "Look, we've got a chap here. He's got is this car stolen? Or we've got this number plate, but we know some number plates have been stolen in Dewsbury." And they spoke to a control room sergeant by the name of Jack Rigg. Now, Jack was more or less ready for retiring, an old copper, very astute. And when they rang, they said, "We've got this bloke here, and he's in the car with a prostitute. But he's got this number plate, it's only a minor offence. Are we to bail him? Because the offence is in your area and to be dealt with in your area, should we bail him to come to Dewsbury Police Station?" Now, somebody else might have said, "It's only a minor thing of pinching a number plate from a scrapyard." By the way, this number plate was from a Skoda wrecked car, and it was fitted on a Rover car.
Yes, yeah.
So the policeman,
the giveaway.
the policeman had got out and spoke to him, and they said, "What's your name?" He gave him a false name. He said, "Who's the girl with you?" And he said, "Oh, it's my girlfriend." He said, "Well, what's her name?" "Well, I don't know." He didn't know her name, you see. Yes. Immediately suspecting, and he says, "Why don't you?" "Well, I've only just met her. So they said, "Look, mate, you're under arrest. You've nicked these number plates." So they got taking him out of the car. And he said, "Oh, do you mind if I go for a pee?" So I went up the yard and he had to urinate. And there was, he did so behind this. I noticed on some of the television programs, they do it behind a bush, and it was behind an oil drum.
Yeah.
Because it's all on that YouTube film that we did. I'll come into that a little bit later. And but the woman in the car with him was a woman called Olivia Reivers. Now, Olivia, she was a known prostitute. At the time, she was actually 4.5 months pregnant. And anyway, they took him to a police station in Sheffield. And that's when they rang Dewsbury and said, should we bail him? And Jack Rigg, the control room sergeant, it was on night, and he just said, hang on, well, what's he look? You see, South Yorkshire weren't as familiar with all the murders that we were dealing with.
Yeah.
They said, well, what's he look like, this chap? Well, he's a bushy hair. Has he got a beard? Yeah, he's a bushy beard and a moustache. And Jack says to him, has he got a gap in his teeth? He said, actually, he has, as a matter of fact, in his front teeth. He had a gap between his front teeth. Well, we knew that on some of the murders, the victims, the Ripper had bitten the breast. And you could see an impression, a teeth impression with a gap.
Yeah.
So Jack said to him, no, don't bail him. I'll send somebody over to escort him back to Dewsbury, which they did. They were placed into the cells, into the one female cell in Dewsbury, kept separate. And Jack Rigg was on nights, left an instruction. He is not to be bailed. Contact the murder incident room in Leeds when they come on at 9 o'clock. It was manned all night, but when the main staff come in at 9 o'clock, contact them and for somebody to come over and see him. By chance, the early morning inspector came on, and the first thing they do, who's in this cell? Let's check this and check that. And he said, we're got a chap in here for pinching number plate. Oh, bail him. And they said, no, don't. There's a letter, a message here from Sergeant Rigg. He's got to be kept in custody to be interviewed by the main incident room at Leeds. So they rang the Leeds, and they just said, is he a Geordie? Does he have that? Do you remember there was a hoaxer called Wearside Jack? I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, yeah.
John Humble, his name.
Yeah.
They just said, one of the points, is he Geordie? No, oh, we're not interested. So what they did, we didn't all have to report to Leeds every day. You worked from your home station, and inquiries used to come through for you to deal with these things. And so they contacted Ossett Police Station, which is next, but it's nearby Dewsbury. And there was a policewoman and a detective, I can't remember his name offhand, but they came over to see him in the cells. And immediately they saw him and thought they were really suspicious. So they rang Leeds and said, look, we're not happy with him, the way he is, the way he looks. And they just sent a detective over who prefers to remain. He didn't like the publicity, so they'd rather be left out of it. But he came over, and they brought him out of the cells and put him in into an interview room. And Peter Sutcliffe, by the way, everybody thinks a murderer is a monster. He was very insignificant, a weak voice, a little chap. It wasn't all that particularly tall, but you wouldn't think if you saw him. It's the same thing happened with a lot of them. They don't look anything like you would think they do. You think they're monsters, but they're not.
Yeah.
And he came over, and it was the detective who came was a detective sergeant, bit of service, got some wit about him, went in and said to him, you know why you're being arrested. And it's more abrupt and more forceful, you see. You know why you're being arrested, don't you? He says, yeah, you think I'm the Yorkshire Ripper. So, well, you are you? And he said, yeah. It was as simple as that. So he called, and Dick Holland, who was number 2 in charge, he came over. Still not quite sure whether it's him or not. But some things are being kept back, which we on the inquiry did not know. And that was, there was one called the £5 note inquiry, in which he'd gone with the prostitute and he'd paid her, he'd given her a £5 note, which is a brand new £5 note.
Yeah.
And she'd put it in a concealed compartment in the purse. And Peter Sutcliffe, he wanted to get his money back, but he couldn't find it, so he just threw it. When he'd murdered the prostitute, I'll tell you which one it was. I'll tell you in a minute. I'll find it. I can't remember. There were so many, and it's 50 years ago, of course. It started it's 1975 when he started his killings. So
Yeah.
50 years ago. But anyway, Dick Holland came up. You always hold something back. When you have a murder, you always hold something back, simply because when you have a murder, you always get one or two people coming in, it was me.
Yeah.
It's crap. I did it, it was me. There's something wrong with him. And we on the investigation did not know that when Peter Sutcliffe had gone back to try and find the £5 note, he'd actually tried to cut this prostitute's head off. We did not know that. Only a few in the senior officer knew that. We didn't. We'd never been told that because there had been leaks to the press. We didn't know that. And so this detective sergeant, when he's interviewing Peter Sutcliffe, it's explaining what happened. And Peter Sutcliffe mentioned the fact that he'd gone back and tried to cut the woman's head off.
Yeah.
He came out and he said to Dick Holland, I think there's going to be, I'm not quite sure we got the right fella here. I mean, he's confessed to being it. He said, but he sort of said he tried to cut this woman's head off. Well, Dick Holland, who was number 2, he knew about this. He says, get straight back in there. This is him. We've got him now. Yeah. And he went back in, and of course he confessed and went through all the murders he'd committed and the assaults and attempted murders. And that was briefly at the end of it, when he got caught.
A fascinating story,
and
one which, I mean, you'll treasure forever, won't you?
And what? Sorry,
you'll treasure it forever, won't you?
It stuck in my mind. I've got lots of memorabilia. I've got lots of stuff. After it was over, I went to see. I knew Dick Holland very well. He used to live near me, actually. When he after he retired, he went blind, and he went to college at York doing gardening and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Nice chap was Dick. But we were ruled by George Oldfield, who I'm afraid was just a drunk. I can remember Yvonne, there was a girl murdered in Halifax, Josephine Whittaker, lovely girl. Her parents had bought her a watch for her birthday, and she was out one evening called to see her grandma and she saw her grandparents to show them this watch. And she got delayed. She was delayed talking to them. And so she set off walking about a mile to her home. And she went up this road, past the Halifax hospital. And there's a park on the right. And she had to cut across this park to her home. She was nearly home. And lovely girl. And Peter Sutcliffe at the time was obviously on his roaming around trying to find a victim. And he just happened to be there, saw her on her own, followed her and hit her over the head with a ball peen hammer, stabbed her all over, 28 times, I think. I described that on the film that I made. And it was so sad. A lot of them were sad, but that particular one was, she's a lovely girl. Worked at the local building society. And her body was laying on the place called Savile Park. And she was laid out on the grass all night until the morning. A chap going to work in the morning saw this body in the middle of the grass, thought strange, reported it to police, and that's when they found her. And it really was. But I remember after, whenever he had a meeting, he used to go and have a briefing, and then he'd have a debriefing. And this briefing took place in, you remember there used to be quarter sessions and assizes?
Yes.
And they cancelled that. And they're all called Crown Courts.
Crown Courts, yeah.
But there was one in Harrison Road in Halifax, the quarter sessions building. And we're all called to this briefing to be chaired by George Oldfield. I with a colleague, Big Mick, Ken O'Loughlin, his name being known as Big Mick, and we'd been called to another body that had been found. It turned out it was a suicide. A man had left his wife and had put a gun in his mouth and shot himself through his mouth. Anyway, it was obviously a suicide, though we deal that with the coroner's office and other officers because we were engaged on the Ripper. So we then go, and by the time we got to the Harrison Road, to the police, to the where they're having the briefing, everybody else was waiting in the courtroom, waiting to be briefed. And we're walking on past the office where George Oldfield is sitting. And we could see as we passed, it was the worst for drink. It really was, you know. And as we walked past, he then came in to give us a briefing about this murder. And I also remember he wore a light brown suit. And obviously, before he'd come in, he'd obviously been to the toilet and he'd urinated down the front of his trousers. And I can remember coming out and with I don't know who it was, somebody said, well, when you look at him, if the public can only see this man is running a major inquiry and just look at the state of him. He really, I mean, he should not, he wasn't fit. He wasn't fit to deal with the shoplifting, never mind murders. And if you objected to what he said or did, if you were in CID, you were out back in uniform, directing traffic.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it was. Actually, if you do look at I've been asked many times if I kept refusing to do a film. And there was a chap called Dave Morton and his wife, Jan, and they were semi-professional filmmakers from Leeds. And they used to teach students at college at York. If, they used to, and Jan, his wife, used to write, say, a mystery play or a murder or a ghost story. They would get the students to act it. They would film it and then they would edit it. And this was, this is what they did. Part-time. And Jan, his wife, kept asking me, hey, were you on the Ripper? Can we film it? And I kept saying, no. The number of times I'd refused. And eventually I thought to myself, I think that the public have a right to know exactly what happened because it was badly run. I mean, people often say the last 3 victims should never have been murdered. I would agree with that, in fact, probably more. And it was just...
Well, maybe there was a bit of luck. I suppose not the right word, really. But, I mean, when the inspector came in and listened to it and then said, well, no, bail him, I mean, had that been followed through, because I think an inspector can outrank a sergeant, can't he?
Yes,
I mean, had that followed through, I mean, Sutcliffe may have gone on to do more.
Oh, yes, he could have gone back to the scene of where he'd been seen with Olivia Reavers. He could have gone back there and recovered the knife and hammer that he concealed behind the oil drum.
Yeah.
He could have gone back and would have been back to square one.
Yeah.
He could have did more because there was no doubt he wanted to kill women, not just prostitutes. And we often wonder why later on we'd say why. And it came about, I don't know if it's true, but this is with and I think it is, Peter Sutcliffe, his mother had several affairs, including a policeman, actually.
Yeah.
And his dad, John Sutcliffe, said, your mother's a bloody prostitute. She's a prostitute. And he seemed to get this thing about prostitutes.
Yeah.
And it's true or not, I don't know. That was the strong rumour. But I do know that when he was arrested and brought into the cells, we had a policeman in Dewsbury who was very religious. He used to go around trying to convert people into Christianity and this sort of thing. And he was a jailer on the morning after being brought in. And it was said, I wasn't there, but it was said that he threw a Bible at him. I don't know whether that's true or not. But
well, I
have heard that from another officer who was researching, Peter Kilbride, who was a jailer at the time. because Peter had to search. You had to search Peter Sutcliffe thoroughly. One of the odd thing about him, when he searched him, he said when he took his trousers off, and you know you get your jumper, your pullover.
Yes.
You know, you've got your open sleeves and your open, and you got a pullover on, like over his underpants, and he got them upside down. So he's got his legs through the armholes, and the whole way you have what your head is stuck out is by his crutch.
Oh, blimey.
It's strange, that.
Yeah, very, isn't it? Yeah.
It really. So I say it was. But going on to the John Humble one, that the hoaxer, a lot of us didn't believe that anyway, because there were so many of his victims. I'll just show you a picture of one. Can you see this?
Yes, yeah.
That is a lady called Olive Smelt. Now, she was attacked by the Yorkshire Ripper. And I spoke to her because it was appeared in the paper that she'd been called a prostitute, which she wasn't. And she was furious about it.
I bet she was.
And I remember a senior officer said to me, "Hey, Parnell, go and have a word with her and pacify her." I went to see her at her home, and she was a really feisty character, by the way. Her husband was sat in the corner, quiet as a mouse, but she really was annoyed. So I just said, no, it was paper talk. And then I've got this other one, another picture.
Yeah.
She was brain damaged. That is, I've forgotten her name now. Maureen Long.
Yeah.
She was brain damaged she survived it. But she also said he had a Yorkshire accent. I'll show you this one finally. And this was a young girl I've spoken to since on a number of occasions. And this is Tracy Brown. You seen that one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, she was a twin.
Yeah.
She was attacked and covered in blood. And she would have been a victim. She was being attacked. A car came round the corner, so it just threw her over a hedge and sped off. Yeah. And I've spoken to all three of those, and it was lucky to she was dead lucky. That, by the way, you know who they are?
Oh, yes, yeah.
George Oldfield, Dick Holland, I can't remember the other chap.
Yeah.
It was a Manchester, can't remember his name.
Do you think, Sutcliffe was, was just an evil person? There's no two ways about it, but do you think that policing nowadays, with the technology that they've got, could have actually apprehended him a lot sooner?
Yes.
Yeah.
I really do. We got computers. People complain about them, but they would have picked up. You feed some things in, and sometimes it will spew out something out, and it gives you a lead towards it.
Yeah,
we were hampered in many ways because of lack of technology. You still need the experience. You need details, and there's still a lot of things in my head which are not. It's not in records, or the things that you remember later, and it just comes. You think, oh. It just comes back to you, you remember things. But I did. It was very time-consuming, and I just
must have been a lot of frustrations in it as well, really, because
there were.
You must have been chasing down, the sort of wrong avenues, and
yeah. Well, a woman would come in and say, "I think my husband's a Yorkshire Ripper," and you had to follow it. They did.
Yeah.
And you got ones where you also had to be very careful when you were. What we used to do during the day, you did your enquiries, and then at evening we used to go and we used to liaise with the prostitutes and say, "Look, we're keeping an eye on you. We'll keep at a discreet distance." And if we see anybody coming to chat you up, we had a little gadget thing to record the car number. You see, But I would be on point A, somebody would be around the corner in point B. So if I miss the car number, I'd say A to B, there's a green car past, can you get the number?
Yeah.
And that's what, and you'd make a note of them. And then at the end of your shift, all these radios, recordings were taken over to at midnight, were taken over to Leeds, to the internet room, where they used to be typed up. And once you get a triple area sighting, then there was an action put out, and you had to go and interview that triple area. Why is a bloke going in 3 different areas talking to prostitutes? And and also, but then of course you had to be careful when you went to them, because you didn't want to split up marriages. You go,
right.
The woman would answer the door and say, but police, what's the police doing? Oh, could we see your husband? What about?
Yeah.
You used to come to the door, and you couldn't say, oh, we come to see about that prostitute you were talking,
Yes, yeah.
So you had to sort of think of it. You'd say to his wife, "But I'm dying for a cup of tea. Any chance of a cup of tea?"
Yeah.
And she's going to make a cup. So you'd then be discreet, and you'd say,
and
you had to do it. You used to be very discreet how you got round to interviewing the people. Could have come round to the police station later and see you and tell you what's happened. You had to use a bit of this.
Of course you did, yeah.
You really did.
And that, that is the crucial point, isn't it? Because using your head and your brains is not a computer, is it?
No. No, it isn't.
And whilst computers can be very handy in doing things 100 times quicker than man can do, but it's up there in your head, isn't it?
It certainly is. And sometimes you had to go to. I can remember on one occasion we had a briefing. It was a Bradford murder. One was there was a murder in Bradford, and the prostitute who survived him, and I can't remember her name offhand, I have it somewhere, and she's pointed out where he had taken her to this spare bit of land.
Yeah.
And he attacked her. She was badly assaulted, but she survived. She later reported it. And this land is an area which is not used. And when we examined, not me personally, but when it was examined, they found tyre tracks. It was a place where other vehicles wouldn't go.
Yeah.
And they found these tyre tracks because it was soft earth.
Yeah.
And that was one of the points of elimination. We knew what different tyres he had on his cars. Because they're all different, it might be a Firestone on one, something on another, and that's what we did, because that was one of the points of elimination.
Yeah, Roger, listen, it's been fascinating talking to you this morning, and I think we could go on and on and on. But thank you for giving up your time and coming on the breakfast show here on Spectrum on Air.
Okay,
we will be releasing this as a YouTube video. So we'll put that out as well. So there you go. But as I say, just thank you very much as a retired detective.
Can I just say this to you before we go?
Yeah.
Do look. I didn't do it. They're on YouTube. There is a film. This, and I mentioned this Dave and Jan Morton.
Yeah.
I wrote the script for it because I was fed up of hearing all the seeing and wrong stories about it. So I finally said, look, I'll do a film. And Dave Morton, he made a really good film. He missed bits out, because one of the things was at the scrapyard where he pins the number plates. We filmed in there, but he left that out of the film.
Yeah.
And he didn't quite finish it off, because Dave, since he died actually. But it is worth watching, because it's the truth.
That's what we wanted
and
to
it's
hear.
It's a 20-odd minute film on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I didn't put it. I think Dave Morton put it on YouTube. But also, there's another one. When I came back home after filming, I'm sat in the conservatory. My wife said, "Why don't you sort of talk about your experiences?" And she just pointed Mike, because I take film. I'm a member of the local film club too now. And we just switch the camera on. My wife switches it on, and I'm talking to camera. And it's a 10-minute film, totally unedited, what I felt about what happened. And they are worth, they are worth watching. So if anybody, any of you listen, if they want to watch, all they have to do is type in my name, Roger Parnell and the Yorkshire Ripper. And there are other, I put other bits on, like we once went to the Grand Canyon in America, but ignore them. There are just 2 films on, 20-odd minute film about the Yorkshire Ripper, and then the one about the 10-minute one where I'm talking about what a mess the boss had made of it.
Well, do you know something, Roger? I've been surprisingly quiet this entire interview. I'm normally more active, but it's been absolutely fascinating listening to you. Thank you so much.
There's so much else I could tell you. There's a lot more actually, but I hope you've. I hope it's. I hope you've enjoyed it. To be honest, because I just
thoroughly. It's been the fastest hour in the history of the breakfast show.
I don't know. On good gracious.
Yes, indeed.
I was told it would be about 15 or 20 minutes.
I know. Yeah. Well, we wanted to hear everything, you know. So
as you haven't heard everything. You made quite a bit, but not all. Okay?
No, we'll talk to you maybe another time, which would be absolutely fantastic, wouldn't it?